Welcome back to Jules Math Tools, where math is made easy. In this session, we are calculating the quotient of our numbers when we have a single-digit dividend and we're leaving our answer in its decimal form. And if you're ready to see how this is done, let's get started. So in our question today, we're calculating the quotient of our numbers and then leaving or expressing our answer in its decimal form. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our division bracket. And remember that 1 is your divisor, so it will be written on the outside of your division rule. So we're dividing 1 into 8, which will go 8 times. We have 8 times 1. And remember that I showed you last video that you could also write that here just to keep track of how or what numbers you're using to get your product. So we have 1 times 8 gives us 8, and 8 minus 8 is 0. Since we do not have a remainder in this case, our quotient is just our whole number of 8. And even with whole numbers are often written as decimal numbers. So remember that with every whole number, even if I was to write 8.0 or 8 and 0 tenths, that is still our whole number in its decimal form. But if there's no remainder, in most cases, 8 is just your whole number answer, but your whole number, like I said, can still be expressed as a decimal number. So let's begin with our second example. So we are writing 2, which is our divisor, goes on the outside, and our dividend of 8 is written on the inside. 2 will divide into 8 4 times. 4 times 2, and again, I will write that at the bottom. 4 times 2 will give us the product of 8, and 8 minus 8 is equal to 0. So for this question, again, we have a whole number answer of 4, but we can still write 4 in its decimal form of 4 and 0 tenths. So that's our whole number in its decimal form. Okay, so let's move on to our third example where we're calculating the quotient. And for this one, we will definitely have a remainder. Just remember that for some numbers, as you divide, in not all cases, you will have a remainder. So that's why I like to keep the same number and just work through different numbers with it, so that you can see that in some cases, you may not have a remainder, and some you may have a remainder, but not every number will always give you a remainder. So let's work with our 3. So we're dividing 3 into 8, which will be 2 groups. So we are multiplying our 2 times 3. I'm trying not to write my multiplication too close to my working, which will equal to 6. When 8 subtracts 6, we have a difference of 2. Now at this point, whenever you're writing a number in its decimal form, I have seen students do this before, and I have to point that out to you. For your answer, please do not write 2.2 or 2 and 2 tenths. That is not correct. Remember that just because 2 is your remainder doesn't mean that 2 is going to be the next digit in your quotient when you're converting your number to a decimal form. So at this step now, since we have divided into all of the numbers that were given to us in our whole number, I'm now going to insert a decimal point behind my quotient of 2. And then I'm also going to input a decimal point behind my 8. So we're going to add a 0. Next, we'll bring down that 0, changing our 2 into 20. And now we will be dividing our 3 into 20. which was equal to 6. We're going to now be multiplying our 6 times 3, which would equal to our 18. And now we'll have 20 subtracting 18, which gives us a difference of 2. And now, depending on how many digits behind the decimal point you were asked to leave, your answer will determine how far you continue your division. So just like before, I'm going to go one more digit behind my decimal point. So I'm going to add another 0. And remember that when you are changing your whole number into a decimal number or expressing your answer as a decimal number, remember that we have an infinity amount of zeros behind the decimal point. That means that you can continuously keep adding as many zeros as needed to continue on with your division. So just like we did before, we're going to divide 3 into 20, which gives us the group of 6. So again, we're going to go with our multiplication and we'll be repeating that step again. So 6 times 3 is equal to 18. And when 20 subtracts 18, we will get the difference of 2. Now, whenever you are dividing and you have a situation like the one we are looking at, these are numbers will be called recurring numbers. And in your recurring number, that means that your quotient and the product that you get in your working or your working itself just keeps on repeating itself. And we see that that happened here with our 20 and then again here underneath where we got 20 again. And we keep repeating our 6 and 6, and which means that we are now in an endless loop where our division will continuously keep repeating the same pattern. So in cases like this, when you have a recurring or a repeating number, we write a dash or a dot above the number that is repeating in our division. So that lets us know that at this point, we're caught in a loop. We can't stop our division. And if we continue on, we're going to continuously keep getting the same number. So we write that in our answer with our 2 and 66 hundredths. And we identify that my 6 is a recurring or a repeating decimal number, and we leave our answer as is. So let's dive into our next division. We're dividing 8 by 4. So we have 4 divides into 8 twice. 2 times 4 is equal to 8. And 8 minus 8 gives us a difference of 0. So our quotient for this answer is 2. And remember that our 2, when written as a decimal number, is 2 and 0 tenths. And for our last example, we're dividing our 5 into 8. 5 divides into 8 once. 1 times 5 gives us the difference, gives us the product of 5. When 8 subtracts 5, you have a difference of 3. And just like we did before, we're going to add in our decimal point behind our quotient, behind our dividend, add in a 0, bring down that 0, changing our 3 into 30, and then we'll divide 5 into 30, which goes 6 times. 6 times 5 will equal to 30. And 30 minus 30 gives us a difference of 0. So our quotient for this question is 1 and 6 tenths. Okay, so there you have it. We just calculate the quotient of our numbers when they are ranging from 1 to 5, and we left our remainder in its decimal form. So remember to always get some additional practice in. This process is not going to come easy, but with practice it will get easier. So I'll see you right here in the next video on Joe's Math Tools, where the aim is always to make math easy.